Good morning. Allow me, I'm not going I'm trying to be brief. Let me just thank Dr. Bahman and Sarah Flonders and Donna Nassour and Eva for their efforts to reflect the reality and what is going on and happening in the Syrian fight against terrorism. I will leave the stage to Dr. Bahman to introduce the other members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mujir.
It's an honor to be here today and speaking for the Hands Off Syria Coalition.
We promised the Syrian people that we met with when we were there that we would come back and speak truth, and that is what the U.S. Peace Council is doing through these talks. It was clear to us from the meetings that we had that most of the Syrian people support Assad. And in fact, in all of our meetings, we didn't come across anyone who wasn't in support of Assad. There were people who were maybe critical of some things, but not everyone is unified.
I've been to Syria 6 times since 2014, 2 of which were with international delegations, and 4 times were independently on a visa I applied for, paid for, and waited for. My trips have been self-funded or fundraised, and I've gone at my own risk and been able to travel freely in the country to areas I wish to travel to. Wherever I've gone, I've spoken in Arabic to the people I'm speaking with. What Donna, what Sarah have said, that the people support their Armenian government is absolutely true.
أنا بدي أقتله بإيدي. أنا لو بدي أتصرح من وراه بدي موته بإيدي. لحظة يضربه. الصورة صورتي دي. أنا فوقي. كمين حاجة. لا اضربه. إيه. تضربه. معي خليك. لا معي خليك. يلا إيه.
نطلع مسخر بجامعة المشية.
إيه.
ايه بعدين كل واحد غاب الثاني يوم كمان وكنا نجيب اخواني من الانترنت. ايه
مين كان يطلع معك؟ يعطيك مصاري لتطلعوا؟
مصاري والله
مين شلون يعطيك مصاري لتطلعوا؟ نزل ايدك، نزل، ما حدا راح يضربك. نزل ايدك. نزل ايدك. نزل ايدك. نزل ايدك. مين كان يعطيك مصاري؟ هيك بدي احكي لك انا. لا هيك بدي احكي لك. شو؟ قرر. مين كان يعطيك مصاري؟ مين كان يعطيك مصاري؟ مين كان يعطيك مصاري؟ بدك تسقط بالشارع؟ لا والله لا. مين كان يعطيك مصاري؟ مين كان يعطيك مصاري؟ مين كان يعطيك مصاري؟ ها؟ بدك تسقط بالشارع؟ لا. مين كان يعطيك؟ مين كان يعطيك مصاري؟ ها؟
لا والله
انت زلمه انت زلمه والله انا بدي اتعذب في قتله والله بدي اتشفق قليله منه ها مين
لكن ما قول شيء هذه اراء
عم يضرب هيك بدك تضيع لي الرصاصه لا بدي نيجي لامك لا والله ايدك ما بترفع حياتهم ما كنت
بيسقط بشار يا ابن الحرام. ها
انا رح سمع غنيه حلوه كثير
يا عزام
ايدك ما بترفع لك شايف الرصاصه انت مره ثانيه لا ترفع لا ترفع.
It's not our business to support or oppose President Assad or the Syrian government. Only the Syrian people have a right to decide the legitimacy of their government. Only the people of Syria have the inalienable right to choose their leaders and determine the character of their government.
ويسقط هالنظام ويسقط حزب البعثية. يسقط هالنظام ويسقط حزب البعثية.
أنا مساحة الجنب. رفع علم استقلال في ساحة الجامعة. الله أكبر. ساحة اليطب. الله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر رفع علم استقلال فوق ساحة الجامعة الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر رفع علم استقلال
Clearly, the terrorists that declare themselves liberators of Syria do not want people to leave. They've been holding civilians hostage. And if you're following reports that are not BBC and that are not New York Times, you will see countless testimonies of civilians, of the 100,000 civilians who've been liberated the last week, saying, thank God for the Syrian Arab army that liberated us. And the terrorists were hoarding food. They were preventing us from having food. This is all documented.
You did ask several people who left Aleppo, and they've been telling you that the terrorists were terrorizing them, and it's not the Syrian regime, and the main problem is the terrorists and not the Syrian regime. They have no problem with al-Assad. Every single Syrian knows that if you talk bad and if you disagree with the Syrian regime, you will be killed. I would love you to have the same conversation with the Syrians in Germany or in Turkey or anywhere else where they know that if they say the truth, they will not be killed. Thank you very much. I would love to meet you outside.
How can the New York Times, I was reading it this morning, or how can Democracy Now!, which I was reading the other day, maintain until this day that this is a civil war in Syria? How can they maintain until this day that that the protests were unarmed and nonviolent until, say, 2012? That is absolutely not true.
So I would love to see how you want to argue on that. With all those videos, you still, until this moment, you say that you just want to argue with a simple sentence as it's not true. And we move on. It's not true. Okay, so it is true.
How can they maintain that the Syrian government is attacking civilians in Aleppo when every person that's coming out of these areas occupied by terrorists is saying the opposite.
I'm risking now my life to show you the real photos in besieged Aleppo under this bombardment which won't stop anymore, under this genocide which caused by Assad regime and Russia.
Here, under this wreckage, a mother with her child and a whole family were buried under these stones. The daddy is extremely injured in a city with a terrible medical situation. Who did this was Assad and Russian warplanes, and who is imprisoning people in the city are Assad forces and the militias that support them.
هي الرسالة ممكن هي تكون الرسالة الأخيرة عن قصف الدمار اللي عم بيصير داخل مدينة حلب. هذا الدمار اللي شايفينه هون وراي، مدينة حلب أصبحت كلها هيك مدمرة. حاليا الطيران الحربي هو فوقي تماما. القصف اللي عم بيصير شيء مو بالعقل. اللي بوتين هو عم يقتل الشعب السوري بطائراته وبالقذائف وميليشياته الموجودة هون داخل مدينة حلب. نحن ما لنا إرهابيين موجودين داخل مدينة حلب، اللي محاصر مدينة حلب هي كلها الميليشيات الطائفية من حزب الله موجودة من العراق ومن أفغانستان من عدة دول عم تساند نظام بشار الأسد.
International organizations on the ground. Tell me which ones are on the ground in eastern Aleppo. Yeah, okay, I'll tell you, there are none. There are none. I'm sure you've heard in the media that hospitals have been attacked. Well, this media is referring to the pockets of Aleppo that were occupied by terrorists. And they have manufactured stories, and I can give you a precise account. In April of this year, there was a hospital called the Al-Quds Hospital, which in a concerted effort, all media said was attacked and targeted and badly damaged by either the Syrians or the Russians. In fact, the Russians had satellite imagery showing that this hospital was in the same shape that it was in October 2015. No difference. Therefore, it was not attacked.
Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Last Wednesday's airstrikes obliterated Al-Quds Hospital in Aleppo. They blew apart at least 50 men, women, and children. It killed one of the last remaining pediatricians in the city. A murderous airstrike. There were almost 300 airstrikes in Aleppo over the last 10 days. Civilians, often in crowds, were repeatedly struck.
Months later, The Guardian, which is a prominent British newspaper, actually said the Al-Quds hospital that it had alleged months prior to be attacked and destroyed was treating victims of so-called chemical weapons attacks. So even the media that is lying is inconsistent in their lies. But there have been hospitals attacked. I went to the Al-Dabit hospital, which is in Aleppo city. It's a maternity hospital. It was attacked on May 3rd, and 3 women were killed. You would think this would be something raised at the UN or by so-called human rights groups, but it was not. In December 2013, the Kindi hospital was attacked and destroyed. It was the largest and best cancer treatment hospital in the Middle East. It was destroyed by al-Nusra terrorist truck bombings.
Госпиталь Аль-Кинди был построен в 2003 году. Оснащенный новейшим оборудованием по лечению онкологических заболеваний, Кинди был гордостью Сирии, а высочайшее медицинское обслуживание предоставлялось бесплатно. После начала террористической войны в Алеппо госпиталь прекратил функционирование и превратился в узел обороны правительственных сил.
Let's talk about the White Helmets. The White Helmets were founded in 2013 by a British ex-military officer. They have been funded to the tune of $100 million by the US, UK, and Europe, and other states. They purport to be rescuing civilians in eastern Aleppo and Idlib, yet no one in eastern Aleppo has heard of them. And I say no one, bearing in mind that now 95% of these areas of eastern Aleppo are liberated.
And this curtain behind me, civil defense have built it to blockade the view for the regime sniper.
Here in Aleppo in the east, in the last part of the east of Aleppo, airstrikes haven't stopped ever since the last night. And, there is no hospitals, and the civil defense have stopped their work because they have no vehicles or fuel to run the remaining of their vehicles. So the deaths are in the streets, and the injuries are dying because they have no treatment.
The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which is based in Coventry, UK, and which is one man, the SOHR is not credible. Unnamed activists are not credible. Once or twice maybe, but every time, not credible. So your sources on the ground, you don't have them.
In 2011, Syrians took to the streets to demand rights. And with the violent government response to these protests, the VDC was created to document human rights violations. With the situation on the ground becoming an armed conflict and appearance of war crimes, the need to document became urgent. Why do we document? We document because accurate legal evidence will be needed in any effort towards sustainable justice in Syria. The evidence works to prove human rights abuses during and after conflict. We also document to sustain a credible narrative of events for the future, essentially a national record for a future Syria presenting accurate numbers and statistics. How do we do it? We collect information through our trained teams of activists, data collectors, and reporters across the country. They collaborate with reliable local sources like hospitals, cemeteries, families of casualties, and credible local media outlets. The collected data is then presented to a team of data inspectors that are specialized in a Syrian province. The inspectors ensure the data is accurate, correct, and complete. They upload the data to VDC's secure database. Several international legal, human rights, and media organizations use our carefully collected and verified data. The VDC continues to work under compelling circumstances. We persevere because a sustainable peace after the conflict cannot be achieved without the proper documents that will pursue justice. Find out more about our database and work by visiting our website.
As a journalist, I'm sure you can appreciate getting other impressions than empirical impressions from the ground. When you talk about the Syrian people and what the Syrian people want, how can you quantify that? Do you have any independent surveys where you can actually document that?
How do I quantify the support of the Syrian people? The elections. In 2014, the Syrian people held elections. The voter turnout was 88%, including people in Lebanon, where I was during the elections in Lebanon, which were actually ran for 2 days, extended hours, people walking for kilometers to reach the embassy, including people who flew from their own countries like mine, which has criminally shut the Syrian embassy so that Syrian people have no rights, and including people within Syria who braved a torrent of terrorist mortars and missiles on election day. And yet, voter turnout rate was something like 88%, I believe. And then the election, the results were 78, I believe. I might get the turnout wrong. So the results 74%, 88. Okay. Anyway, the point being, overwhelmingly, the people support President Assad. That's based on elections.
Now let's talk about the election. See, in most of the Syrian election rooms, they don't have the black room to go and make your liberated freedom opinion on that piece of paper. Me personally, they took my finger, punched it with a needle, and then they made me a stamp on every single paper with the word of yes, 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 with the blood. You got what I mean? That's personally what happened to me, and everyone else was around me. Now, we don't have the black room, and let me tell you that once you walk into the black room, you walk out, and then you will be immediately detained and sent to jail, because they know, because the Syrian tradition in elections, that you have to take the paper and shows everyone else that you just wrote yes, and you put it inside of the box. Once you go inside of the black room, that means you are against the regime, so they don't need to question you that whether you put no or not. They will just immediately take you to jail. So is this election is valid?
There are people that want change in the government. We're not pretending they don't want change. Everybody wants change. But in terms of support of the government, the point is they don't see President Assad as the problem. They see the problem as terrorism. They see elements of problems in the system that they have there. But President Assad, they don't see as the problem. They actually overwhelmingly support him.
Her name is Eva Bartlett. The extreme overwhelm of happiness is that when you look at her and the way that she's defending with that certain knowledge and logic, we know already, it's very well known, just like the sunshine, is that she supports the Syrian regime and she is not liberated as she claims as. Now, you don't have to go to China to prove that. You just need to type her name on Facebook and you will see that this woman, she's not Canadian. She's a pure Syrian. She put the Syrian flag in her profile, okay, with the Syrian Assad school as well behind. If we see people killing the bad people, the Syrian regime, she put those photos. That shows you, see, she's a pure working with the Syrian regime. I don't have to tell you and prove this to you. You can find this yourself. That's the photo of Al Assad. This is how liberated she is. So this is how liberated is her source of information. This is what type of credibility. That's her profile photo. This is the credibility that she is educating us and teaching us. That's a Syrian soldier who've been killing everyone probably. Yeah, that's a civilian that she's been sourcing all her information from. Now, if we keep looking across all her profile photo, everything is with I stand with Assad supporters, all faith. See, it's everything. It's just supporting Al-Assad. There is not a single photo that shows that this woman have spoke to anyone else beside of Al-Assad regime people at all. I don't have to prove that. This is how liberated she is. See, she's just defending everything. Syria, no to repeat of Iraq and Libya. Victory to Syria. So, see. Do we have to talk? You don't have to talk. That's her profile tells a lot and enough, I believe.